So you may be saying to yourself, why does this fool have a heart filter on right now? What is she up to now? Well, this fool right here is about to tell you in a very loving way that Canella and I, Canella Sirocco Art, and myself are going to Charlotte, North Carolina this upcoming February, which I know seems like a long time away, but it really isn't. We are going there in February and registration is now open. So if you are a resident of Charlotte, North Carolina, or want to travel there, you can email fluidartescape@gmail.com and we will send you all the information you need. I'm so excited. It was so fun meeting a bunch of you in Naples, and now I'll be able to meet some of you in Charlotte, North Carolina. And also, I myself am going to be in Texas teaching a class next Saturday, 1 week from today. So I'll be meeting some of you there too. Which, by the way, there's still a few seats open if you have not heard that announcement and are interested in attending that class. Information is in the description. So with all that being said, look in that description, send us an email if you're interested. Now, today's video is going to be a lot of fun. It's actually a commission piece that I was commissioned to create for a beautiful, lovely lady. And she wanted a shell piece done. So I hope you enjoy this. And if you're interested in one of these pieces, send me an email. I take commissions. I love you all. Let's get started. So let me walk you through this step by step. First step is you're going to take a canvas, or in this case, a wooden gesso canvas panel, whatever they want to call them. They have 2-inch natural wood sides, and you want to take your canvas or substrate and start creating some texture on the background. Now you can do this using so many different items. I'll pop a few up on the screen so that you have an idea, but you can take something as simple as glue and add in some baking soda or even some sand and create some grit on the background. What you're looking for is just some uneven, bumpy texture. I myself am using modeling paste, and I'm also using that modeling paste, as you can see, to tack down that fishnet. And you know, once you put this paste down, you don't have to stop there. You could also use things to make that paste even more texture. Like I like to use aluminum foil rolled up into a ball, and then I kind of sponge into the wet paste or pounce into it. That creates a really, really nice texture. Now, I know it's hard to see. I actually turned the filter on the lighting down a little bit so you could kind of see it, but whenever you work with white on white, it's very hard to see any of this. So you'll have to just take my word for it. So once I get done with this step, then I will let it dry and come back in and add all of my goodies. Now, when it comes to letting it dry, that depends on what you use, but if you used a professional brand modeling paste, it will tell you to let it dry for an hour or two. So the next step is to glue our shells down. Now, I use hot glue just to temporarily place them, and in the end, I use resin to really nail them down good. If you're not going to use resin, I highly suggest using something like a heavy gloss gel to adhere them to the canvas. Especially like these big starfish and big shells that have some weight to them, you want a really good adhesive. So for this step right here, even though I have it sped up a bit, it takes me a very long time because you have to kind of plan ahead of where some of the bigger shells are going, where the little shells are going. Will this look good if I put this here and then this bigger one next to it? So, you know, it takes me quite a few hours, probably about 5 or 6 hours to do this. This is not like fluid art where you have to worry about paint drying and stuff, so you could really take your time with it and kind of map things out. You could also lay out all the shells first and then come back and glue them down. So my two main areas of interest are going to be that big shell I just glued down with this second shell upside down that will be filled with crystals, and the big starfish on the right hand side. There are so many little interesting shells that I have added in here that you really can't notice in the end piece. The owner will notice them because she'll be able to look at it in real life, but once the color goes on, some of them get lost in the video view, but in real life, it is just really a unique, interesting piece of art to look at. So I would say about half of these shells I have found on beaches in various locations around the world on vacations I've gone on that I've saved, and some I have bought. The starfish I bought, some of the bigger ones I bought. The coral I had found on a beach in the Grand Cayman Islands. It was already dried up and dead and hard. You know, I didn't pick it off a live coral patch, or coral reef, I should say. I know better than that. This is all stuff I found on a beach. So now that I'm using these little white pebbles, and there's a million of them, I can't glue them down one at a time with the glue gun or try to push them into hot glue. I'll burn my fingers and don't want to deal with fingertip protectors. So what I'm using is some heavy gel, and I'm just kind of pushing them into it. And then once I'm done with this step, we're going to let this piece dry overnight. I use the pebbles to kind of create a little more texture on the background, the outer edge of the shell area, and to fill in any little gaps that I may have. So as I said, we're going to let it dry overnight, and then we're going to move on to step 3, which is spray paint everything white. And then we're going to let it dry for an hour. So I've already done that. I took it outside and spray painted it with a matte white spray paint. What this allows us to do is when we add color, you're not going to see the different colors of the shell through the colors that I'm using. So spraying it all white or black if you want. I mean, it doesn't have to be white or black. It can be any color you want. Just stops those different colored shells from showing through. So now I've taken the color Sage from Primary Elements, and I've added into a bottle a little spoonful of that and some water and shook it up. I then took some watercolor pigment from Holbein, did the same thing, put some water in a bottle, a few drops of that concentrate, shook it up, and now I'm going to alternate spraying those colors onto my surface and drying them in between. Now, the Primary Element color gave me an issue in these little spray bottles because there's mica in the product. It kept clogging up the little sprayer, so I transferred it into this big green spray bottle that you're going to see. The client that ordered this, by the way, this is 18 by 24, big piece. She wanted all sage. So that's what we're going for here, a sage theme. And this new Primary Element sage color that just came out was beautiful and just perfect timing. Everything just worked perfectly. So I did a little bit of something different in this video that I didn't do in the last video. This sage color was extremely light. And in the last video, the blue that I used was much more stronger. So I was able to get away with just spraying on the color, letting it dry, and then resining. But this sage, I felt it was too light. So what I did was I sprayed it first, let it dry, and then I came back in with the same color and one other Primary Element, which I will pop the name up on the screen because I'm not remembering the name of it right now. I mixed them both with some Polypore that came with the new set and sponged on some of the color. Here they are right here. So they're both a sage, but they're different shades of a sage. So this is Fragrant Thyme, and the other one was Sage. So you could see they're just 2 shades apart there. So I start off with the color Sage, as I said, mixed with some polypore, and I'm just going to sponge it onto the canvas. I will then come back in and sponge on the Fragrant Thyme. Now is where you'll really be able to start seeing that texture on the background. This color, by the way, was a nightmare to film. It was just so hard to get it to show up on camera, but I kind of tried to adjust the lighting here and there for you so you could really see it. So I'm going to finish sponging on this sage color, and then I'm going to come back in with the Fragrant Thyme and do the same exact thing. Then we will let it dry overnight and come in for the final steps. When it comes to the shells and the harder to reach spots, you can use a paintbrush and just paint on the surface with the primary element. Because this color was so light, I decided to go over the entire thing again with the same two colors just to deepen it up a bit. So you're going to see here, this is the second time going over the starfish, and you're starting to see that color a little bit more now. So once you let this dry overnight, it's time to start adding in your bling bling, baby. So for that, I'm going to be using some crushed glass, some baubles, and some pearls from Enchanting Fine Art. I have some crushed glass from them. There is a discount in the description for their products. Loida, if you're listening, I love these little pearls and baubles. You need to get them in every single color of the rainbow. And I highly suggest with the pearls, even selling them as individual colors, because they are great. So we're going to use KS Liquid Art Elite Epoxy. All that information on discounts for these products, again, are in the description. I've mixed it up. I've mixed up 18 ounces. I'm going to add a tiny, tiny, tiny bit of the fairy dust from Enchanting Fine Art. And you can see here, I'm showing you just how little for 18 ounces of resin. I want a very light twinkle in the surface of this painting. Even though the primary elements offer sparkle too, I like that glitter, just a little tiny zap of it here and there. If you're new to resin, I have a ton of resin tutorials out there, but you just want to follow the mixing instructions per the brand that you buy. Mine is mixed for 3 minutes. It works for almost an hour or longer, depending on what you're doing with it. And also what you add in it to color makes a difference. If you use something like spray paints or alcohol inks, it will actually thin down the resin and make it last a lot longer versus something like an acrylic paint that will speed up the thickening of resin. So always try to use resin specific products when you work with resin and coloring it. But in this case, we don't need any color. We're just putting it on clear and drizzling over the shells, and we're just going to rub it all over the surface. I'm not doing the sides, those are taped up. So I'm going to do the surface and make sure each one of those shells is fully coated. So once this is done, you're going to take your crushed glass, your fire glass, whatever kind of objects that you want to place on the shells. I mean, you don't have to put anything, but if you want to, such as glitter, something like that, now's the time that you're going to do that. And once you're done sprinkling all this gorgeousness on, you're going to let it cure for 24 hours and you're going to see the final result. Please excuse the black paint all over my hands because I'm going away to Texas. I had done multiple paintings in a row, so that's the remnants of the painting I did right before I started this final step of this painting. So we're almost finished up here. I am so happy with how this turned out. I already showed it to the client. She is super excited about it, and it's going to look beautiful in her home. Now for these little micro pearls I'm going to put on next, I chose to use only the blue and white ones. The peach colored really didn't fit in, so I just separated them and used a few of the blue and white pearls. And again, that wet resin will act as a glue for me, so I'm just plopping them right into it. And the last sprinkle I'll be doing is the crushed glitter glass. This is what really gives you the flashes of sparkle when the piece is dry and on the wall, because it just has a great reflection to it. Between that and that bigger sized fire glass that I used, that really created a lot of sparkle to the piece. So here she is in all of her glory. I absolutely love how this came out. It's just, like I said, on camera you can see some of the cool, interesting shells, but in person they're just so unique, and you know, a lot of them have ridges in them that are different than just your typical shell. So they're a lot of fun. And it's definitely a conversation piece. You know, if you hang something like this on your wall and you have a guest that comes over and sees this, they're going to be like, wow, what is that? So here we are with the close-up outside. You can see some of the cool things here, and the coral, all the unique grooves in that. And sage is a different color, but very pretty. It's very sparkly because the primary elements are not only shimmery, but they also have color shifting abilities to them. And you saw the sides there to the piece. Now I'm going to take you inside and you'll see the little sparkle in the surface from that fairy dust glitter. Just very tiny bit of sparkle. Lots of sparkling going on over here in the center. And that is it, my friends. I hope you enjoyed it. Again, if you're interested in Charlotte, North Carolina, taking an acrylic pour class with Canella Sirocco and myself, registration is now open. Check out the description for that. There's still time to get in on the Texas class if you live in Texas, and all of the information on the products that I used is listed below. I love you all. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you enjoyed the video, please click like, please comment, and please subscribe if you haven't already. I tend to release a video every 3 to 4 days, so if you ring that notification bell, you will be notified of the next video. Until the next time, my friends, enjoy your day and happy pouring.